This episode of Lobbing Scorchers is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based cellar. Not only are they a local company, but they've been supporting independent Seattle soccer media since 2011 and are run by Sounders fans. They offer the best boutique wines in the world to members of their mailing list with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Their model is simple. 1, they email compelling offers. 2, you request bottles that sound appealing. 3, your wine arrives at their Soto warehouse and is ready for pickup or shipping. Their Soto tasting room is also open to the public. If you're interested in joining their mailing list or learning more about them, visit fullpullwines.com. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 54 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lillianwall. I'm joined virtually here by producer Noah. And Noah, we're back on track with another dub pod today. How are you feeling?
Ari, we love a cup. We love a cup. Quote Paul Rothrock.
We do love a cup. It's a Leagues Cup dub pod, to be specific, as the Seattle Sounders took what ended up being a relatively comfortable, if unspectacular, 2-0 victory over Minnesota United at Lumen Field on Friday night to open up group stage play, putting them in pretty assured position to advance out of the group stage. I don't think it's guaranteed as of yet, but I think with that victory, Minnesota United would have to beat Club Necaxa of Liga MX by multiple goals, which may or may not happen. But it's looking like Seattle's going to get out of the group. Paul Rothrock did it again. This is going to come as a shock, but we're going to be talking about Paul Rothrock on the show. Jordan Morris did it. The Paul Rothrock to Jordan Morris connection and the Jordan Morris to Paul Rothrock connection, it electrified Lumen Field late after a pretty sluggish opening 80-plus minutes to the game. We're going to hit a Leagues Cup agenda check later in the show after our game review. We'll take your questions. Appreciate everyone who submitted those, even for a kind of lackluster Leagues Cup game. We're going to talk about some of the other Leagues Cup results that have taken place around MLS the past 2 nights. So it's going to be a good jam-packed show. Might be a little bit of a shorter one, but we've been cooking like hour-and-a-half ones the last couple, so if we go a little shorter this time, that's just fine. But before we do that, I wanted to let you all know, Lobbing Scorchers is a part of the Sounder at Heart podcast network. If you want to get the best independent Seattle soccer coverage, consider supporting us by going to sounderatheart.com/LS. That's sounderatheart.com/LS. Scroll down to subscribe and support to get 30 days completely free. Every sign up through our link helps support and grow this show. Also, if you're listening to this and you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube. No, we passed the 300 benchmark. That was our goal. We summited that. The next goal is 350. Help us on the drive to 350 YouTube subs. Any and all support that we can get as we try and grow on that platform is much appreciated. All right, let's get into this game review, Noah. Does that sound good?
Let's do it.
So yeah, the Seattle Sounders started Leagues Cup play at Lumen Field hosting Minnesota United. Let's do our lineup reaction first, as we always do at the top of these game reviews. I think the biggest thing with this lineup was that Pedro de la Vega got the start. You had Christian Roldan back at right mid, and you had a John Bell sighting. But I think my biggest takeaway is that I think this tournament is it's going to be a good showcase for de la Vega as he gets back to fitness. We're going to see what he looks like with a larger complement of minutes. And just as he kind of gets his feet under him more and, feels healthier, gets more confidence in that hamstring, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. We're going to do some De La Vega takes on how he looked in this game. I thought there was some good. I thought there was some not so good. But mainly, I'm just hoping he stays healthy and that we really get some consistent run to see what he can bring to the table. And really, I think that's the biggest thing I'm watching in this tournament, more than if they actually make a run at winning it or anything like that. If they make it further down the road, I'll start thinking about stuff like that. But right now, I just want to see De La Vega stay healthy, get some run, get some minutes, and hopefully get more acclimated to his teammates, gel with the team, and contribute in the way that we all hoped and thought he would when he was brought in here. As for the game itself, I'll do the little recap. This whole game, it felt a little just kind of like half-hearted to me. It was a light crowd. Schmetz wasn't wearing a suit. He had his sweater on. The energy was not really there as much as you would find in like a regular MLS game. I do think that's the type of thing that will get better as the tournament goes on. But I was covering a lot of the games last night, and I was watching a little bit of them tonight as well. And it seemed like a recurring theme. Charlotte FC coach Dean Smith had a take similar to that we're going to talk about later in the show. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt lethargic. It felt disconnected. It felt like the execution. It kind of felt like a preseason scrimmage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
It was 0-0, and the first big play of the game, really, in the second half, happened when Hassani Dotson of Federal Way, I believe, got a red card for cleaning out Rui Diaz, who had came on as a second half substitute. Up until then, I felt like Seattle actually looked okay on offense at points. They had some really good chances in the first half. Dane St. Clair, Minnesota United goalkeeper, was playing out of his mind. Dane St. Clair had one of the better goalkeeping performances that Seattle has come up against this season, which he's kind of a random guy to do that. Like, he's pretty good, but
he's good for one of those every year.
I guess so. Yeah. He looked like Hugo Lloris out there or something. He was really like Seattle could have won this game a lot more comfortably, if not for the heroics of Dane St. Clair. But the Loons really put themselves behind the eight ball when Hassani Dotson got that red card for, that was a bad tackle. I thought it was a fair red, and kind of to my earlier point, like, didn't it look like when he got that red card, like usually they argue and protest and they're like, that's not a red card. I didn't even do it. What are you talking about? Hassani Dotson was like, okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be here anyway. So peace out. See ya.
It really felt like that the whole game. The energy level, everything, even the players. There was just something off about the vibes. Yeah,
the vibes were off, and like I think that Hassani Dotson's reaction to the red card kind of encapsulated that. Like I was watching that, I was like, dude, aren't you going to protest? Like, like even the whole team, like they usually surround the red. They didn't care. They're like, we didn't really want to be here anyway. We're just trying to play this last half hour and fly back to Minnesota. But to be fair, like I pretty much got the same vibe from the Seattle side for most of the game too, until the very end. And like to that point, it honestly looked like Seattle was going to let the Loons troll out a 0-0, which I believe it would have gone straight to penalties at 0-0.
Correct.
At that point, you have a situation where you've gone up a man with a lot of time left and you can't score, and you could lose that game in penalties. That would have been bad. Like we would be having a pretty scathing conversation right now if they had not been able to score late and pull this win out. But fortunately, that was not the case. Because what happened was Paul Rothrock. Okay, now I realize we do the Paul Rothrock deep dive on every show, but he continues to deliver the content. And this game was not only was it no exception, but this was one of the better Paul Rothrock games yet, honestly, to date. I think at least, or maybe not games overall, but individual just sequences. That last kind of 5 minutes plus stoppage of Paul Rothrock content was incredible. I mean, first of all, you had the nutmeg. Did you see that?
That was so good. Oh my God.
That was
so good.
I'm dead serious. That was one of the best megs I've ever seen.
Incredible.
And we've been guilty on this show of kind of playing into the Paul Rothrock is more heart and grit than technical skill and athleticism, or at least I've been guilty of that. I think I espoused a take something to that effect a couple shows ago. And I do think there's some truth to the fact, like he's not Haney Mukhtar out there,
No,
but
he's not Messi.
But there is more substance to his game, I think, than I probably was giving him credit for, and more than probably like the Paul Rothrock thing has been. Still, even with how well he's played and how much substance there actually has been to it, it's still been more of like kind of like a meme and a bit than anything. But like, I mean, it's just gotten to the point where, I mean, you see things like this Meg and then just also the consistent energy he's bringing and the stat sheet production. And again, it becomes less and less of a bit with each passing week. That Meg, I mean, as John Bell tweeted after the game, P-Rock has been in his bag. He was in his bag on that one. The Sounders got their goal. It was like the 85th minute or something. Paul Rothrock got the assist. It was a nice secondary assist from Danny Leyva. He was the one who slid Paul Rothrock through. Paul Rothrock is taking his guy on, sends in a perfect cross. It slides all the way through to Jordan. Easy finish for Jordan right in front of goal. With the form that he's been in lately, that's about as easy as it gets. And it was pretty dusted at that point. The Loons did have that one breakaway kind of towards the end when they were down a man, where it was an Andy T start. I forgot to mention that in the lineup reaction. Andy T made a good save on that. And really, Andy T, I think you have to credit for how comfortable this result ended up being in the end, because he made a couple of nice saves, including that one on the breakaway when Seattle was up a man and almost got bammed on. But again, Paul Rothrock assist. He gets on the stat sheet again. Jordan with another goal. Great to see. And that gave Seattle a lead that they would not give up. They almost had a second right after that opener when Christian Roldan won a penalty. But Dane St. Clair, again, he stuffed Albert Rusnak's penalty kick. I thought that was more a great save than a bad shot.
Oh, it was great.
It was obviously not a great taken penalty because it got saved, but he made
it was placed well though.
I thought that's what I thought too. Someone was like chirping me because, we've been praising Rusnak a lot on this show, rightfully. I mean, like if you think that's just us blowing smoke, I mean, go look at the game logs and look at the stats he's been putting up the last few weeks. Like I don't really think that was an egregiously bad, like penalties are randomized, like whether they go in or the shooter has the advantage for sure, but like sometimes you're going to get them saved. And I think you have to credit Dane St. Clair there more than knock Rusnak for anything that he could have done differently. But then Seattle, they did end up getting their second goal. Paul Rothrock, he did it again. So the first time it was the Paul Rothrock to Jordan Morris connection. This time it was the Jordan Morris to Paul Rothrock connection. Absolutely electric. It was a giveaway from Minnesota United right in the right above their own penalty box. Good job by Jordan to win the ball. He's making a run in on goal. He sees Paul Rothrock wide ass open. Great decision, unselfish decision to lay it off to Paul Rothrock. And Paul Rothrock did what Leo Chu couldn't do in this game, which was get a shot on target, and he scored it. And I mean, honestly, I say that like as somewhat a compliment to Leo Chu, because I thought that he actually had a couple of really good looks in this game and a couple of really nice sequences, but he had like 2 or 3 clean looks that Dane St. Clair saved. You're not going to save that on Paul Rothrock, though.
Thank you for listening to the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network, which now includes Nos Arietes, Lobbing, Scorchers, and the Cooler Guild. We've been independent since August of 2023, but need your support to make sure it continues. Although this podcast is free, it's only made possible by your continued support. Memberships start as low as $25 a year, which not only helps make podcasts like this one happen, but also gets you access to everything we produce. If you're able to support us at higher levels, starting at $75 a year, you gain access to a host of other perks, most notably entry into our members-only Discord, where the smartest, funniest, and most engaged commenters share their thoughts and ideas. To find out more, just visit sounderatheart.com and click the subscribe button in the top right corner. Thanks for listening.
Hell no.
No. I thought, what was cool too after the match, Jordan in the locker room was talking about that goal and him picking his head up and looking for Rothrock, because the other week when he had blasted that one straight at the keeper instead of just tapping it off to Rothrock, he said that he didn't see him there. And then after the game they talked about it, and Jordan was basically like, I'm going to keep my eye out for you. I'm going to get you yours. You deserved that goal. So it was kind of cool that like he was very cognizant that Paul was out there, and I don't know, just that like that knowledge and that trust in each other that's been building. We'll get to the connection more in the agenda check section.
That's a great shout. No, I hadn't heard that quote, but yeah, like I mean, if you remember, we were kind of giving Jordan a little bit of shit for that play, because obviously for our agenda, we wanted the Rothrock goal, but also like that is a play where if you have an open net, if you lay it off, you should lay it off. But it's interesting to hear that he was like, I honestly didn't see him, and we talked about it. And then the next time they go out there and they connect on that and they get a goal out of that, that's good stuff. It's good stuff from the squad. I'm going to hit my rapid fire takeaways here. Yeah, I mean, first of all, like I said, just not that great a game. Weird vibes. Felt like it never really kicked into gear. The vibes salvaged at the end, at the very end, but just for most of the night, it felt off. Let's do our De La Vega takes right now.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I feel like just still doesn't quite look fully acclimated and gelled with the rest of the team. There was some moments in this game that were I thought like good in a different way than the other good moments that we've seen so far. There was a couple of like dangerous sequences that it was the most involved he's been. Like his influence was on the game way more in this game than any game he's played with this team to date. And I thought, he took a couple shots from distance that he missed, but I don't mind him lining those up. And he got close enough where I think, if he once he gets in rhythm, you might see him hit a couple of those at some point in his tenure with the team. And, I don't know, just him being aggressive. I don't mind that, even though he didn't quite make those. But there's still some rust and just lack of chemistry showing again. He had one cross that Nuhu could have hit it, like if Nuhu hit that cross, we would have been like, that's a Nuhu cross,
100%.
There was that one. And then there was one where he made a run down. He was like basically on a breakaway down the left side, and he had like a great platform to put a low cross in. Like there was no one on him out wide basically, and he tried to put the low cross in, and it was just like not really to anyone. That could have been a Leo Chu cross. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Well, I remember. Yeah. I texted you in one of our group chats, jokingly saying De La Vega might have a worse cross than Nuhu. I literally I have that in our notes here, but It was on one hand a rough showing. I don't think anyone wants their DP to be playing like that, but considering the circumstances, you're right. He was heating up. He was way more involved. He was way more confident. And actually that one shot where he was out from distance, I don't know, it felt dangerous. It looked good.
He almost hit that. He really, he almost hit that. So that shows to me that he has that in his bag, which, not everyone does. So,
he can play a full 90, we can judge him fully, I think is like where we're both at.
For sure. The last De La Vega thing I was going to bring up was just, there was one play that I really liked, where he was taking on a guy 1v1 and he just mossed him, which we've seen him do a couple times. And I love that. Like the fact that that's in his bag, I think is very encouraging. I'd like to see more of it. But just the fact that we've now seen him do that a couple times, he did it again in this game. His dribbling is very good. So I'm still excited to watch him play more. I feel like we're still at a point where the sample size is small enough and we haven't seen enough of it where the hopes and dreams of his theoretical upside are still there. Once he gets to 500 plus towards 1,000 minutes, I'm going to start formulating conclusions, even if that's probably still too small sample size. But, I am still at the point right now where I'm excited about his future prospects and watching him play in this tournament. And that kind of brings me to my next takeaway, which is that this tournament, it's all about like data points like that for me more than winning it. I want to see them get out of the group just because this is not that hard a group. It's really not.
This is an easy group.
This is an easy group. The Loons are down incredibly bad right now. Club Necaxa is like 13th in Liga MX.
They were playing a striker at like center back yesterday.
Yeah, so
it was bad.
They got to get out of this group and, ideally make a run, but I just want to see De La Vega get fit, see if there's anything more we can learn about what could affect this team's ceiling for this season and into the future. And if they make a run, they make a run. Like when they made the run a couple years ago, I had fun with that. I mean, I got to go to Vegas, so that's probably why. But I was actually really getting into the games later on in the tournament. So I think that's kind of what I would say to if anyone was sort of feeling like I was, like the game was kind of dragging and it just was not that good a game. Like the further that they get, it will pick up when there's a trophy on the line and then the reality of the prize money and the Champions League spot like set in and like that's what you're playing for, as well as the trophy, and those things matter. And so the players know that they want the prize money, they want the Champions League spot. So I imagine the intensity and just the quality of the footy will increase accordingly as all these teams get later in the tournament. Yeah, it was a rough start though. It was like low attendance all across the league. Although the Quakes broke the League's Cup attendance record tonight. They were playing
That's
Chivas.
awesome.
They put up 50K at the 49ers Stadium, whatever that place is
rocks.
called. So that looked like a live atmosphere, and there was some good crowds. But I did think there was kind of a theme of lack of energy going on with these games.
One thing I did think was funny that it was a little bit of a conspiracy theory that I was texting one of my Minnesota United friends, and he was like, I honestly think we're trying to bomb out of this because we're so injured. Like it doesn't matter. Like they were just like, whatever.
That's
we get
really,
a month off to
that's
heal.
kind of confirmation of what we were talking about with the Dotson red card. Like that was really one of the strangest reactions to a red card I've ever seen. Just how little he see. Like no fine for failure to leave the field in a timely manner.
No mass confrontation.
He was
fine,
out
nothing.
of there. He was out of there. Yeah, no mass confrontation violation. No failure to leave the field in a time. If anything, he left the field in too timely a manner. There was actually a point where it looked like the ref they might be going to his headset to tell him to review the tackle, and like Dotson looked pissed. He was like, I'm already like, what are you talking about? Like I'm ejected. I'm out of here.
He was about to go sit in the stands, get a popcorn and a beer, just like,
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised. Next up in Leagues Cup, Seattle has Club Necaxa of Liga MX at Lumen Field on August 4th. And yeah, like I said, not off to that good a start in their league season. So out of all the Liga MX teams that you could be playing, this isn't like that hard. You've got juggernauts that are in this tournament, that are in this league, like the classic ones like Club America, like Chivas, Monterrey. That's the one I was looking for. Tigres is always a factor.
Although, I mean, Austin versus Monterrey. Austin got it done versus UNAM, so who knows?
They did,
Maybe
yeah.
Austin's
That's who Seattle famously beat in the CONCACAF Champions League final. So we're gonna get to that because for however much I talked about how these games weren't all that great last night, that game was awesome. That game was awesome, and I'm actually excited to talk about that because Steph Cleveland, shout out Steph Cleveland.
Yeah, he did.
He was a big time character in that game. All right, we're going to hit our agenda check real quick, but before that, there was a Sounders news item that I wanted to talk about real quick related to Jordan Morris, who he was talking about this after the game, I guess, and he was saying that he was given an invitation to go play with the U.S. team at the Olympics as one of they get three, it's a U23 team essentially, but they get three overage players, so it's essentially just who they would call for the U23s, but Walker Zimmerman is one of them, and then there's two other guys on our team that are like older than 23, and Jordan Morris was invited to be one of those. And basically the way he described it, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically what he was saying is that U.S. Soccer and the Sounders couldn't really come to an agreement on the timeline for releasing him. The Sounders wanted him there for a couple for the Open Cup game at Sac Pub, right? And then and then the St. Louis game, and then U.S. Soccer
at Austin.
And U.S. Soccer was drawing like a hard line, like we need him there the entire camp, otherwise he can't roll. And Jordan was, outward about his disappointment with this. He was, he really wanted to go. He said it was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and that he was disappointed that they couldn't come to a middle ground. I got two things to say about this. I mean, number one, feels pretty stupid to me that U.S. Soccer couldn't just let him come a little late. Like, first of all, have you seen our Olympic roster?
Yeah.
Terrible. It's not good at all. Like, no offense to those guys, but like, it's just not. Like, I looked at that roster and I was like, this is mid at absolute best.
Yeah.
So if you really think that Jordan Morris can improve it, which I think he absolutely, when I looked at that roster, thinking back on it, like he absolutely would have added at least some juice to it. It's not a very good roster. You should just, you're not exactly swimming in an embarrassment of riches with that, is my point. So you should just let him pull up late. It's not that serious. Did you see what happened in our first game against France?
I did.
Terrible.
I watched that match.
Terrible.
It was so bad.
We won the next game. I don't know.
The New Zealand game. Yeah.
Okay. So,
but it's New Zealand.
It's New Zealand. No offense to New Zealand, but like,
Yeah.
we went up against France and got boat raced.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in that sense, you know, I don't know if Jordan would have made all that much of a difference with that fate because the French were just, running kind of wild on us in the second half. I watched some of that and it was tough. So I don't really need to watch him out there while we're getting destroyed by the French. But if he wanted to go, I feel like they should have U.S. Soccer should have just let him go. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and especially because for literally like 99% of every other nation, for players who play at a high level in their in-club season right now, they are never going to release them. So the fact that the Sounders were open to releasing Jordan during a tournament that they can clinch a Champions League spot and can win money, and they were willing to work with U.S. Soccer, but U.S. Soccer was being so incredibly dumb. But like, what's new? Are we really shocked?
When you followed U.S. Soccer long enough, like I have, you kind of get used to this. Like, it's one of those things where they're just like so obsessed with the like technicality of it. Like you guys could just adjust the protocol slightly to accommodate. He's not like putting himself above the team. It's just like how the schedule worked out. Like, why are you so rigid about stuff like this, especially when your organization, let's be honest, doesn't have the best reputation and credibility to begin with, especially like these days. So,
well, and they were
pretty dumb all around.
If we have to make an exception for Jordan, we have to make an exception for everyone else. And it's like, buddy, Duncan Maguire and Tanner Tessman and Gianluca Busio, who they're not even in season right now, I don't think. Like, who cares?
Who cares?
Bro?
That is
like
the biggest point that I want you all to take away from the segment of the show is who cares?
Yeah.
That's what,
like, wow, Columbus crew really missing out on Patrick Schulte. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, come on, let's be so for real.
All right. Yeah. I think that's about enough on the Olympics. We can, if the U.S. does something, or if anything notable happens, I'll talk about the Olympics. I just honestly haven't been paying all that close attention to any of the Olympics. Not even
if
soccer,
Josh Atencio gets in
plays,
we'll talk about that.
We'll cover that for sure. All right, let's hit this agenda check. I got 4 written down for this week, Noah. We're going to do a Paul Rothrock one this week because it actually, I mean, the guy was on the field as a substitute, right? And got 2 more goal contributions, including
you can't
the goal
stop
to
him.
You can only hope to contain Paul Rothrock. And really, like I was saying earlier, it's just by the week, by the minute, I just continue to be more and more fascinated with this whole storyline, which started as a bit and is now really taken on a life of its own, with every assist logged, with every goal scored. I haven't added up his full stats, but for his career, he's got probably 8 or 9 goal contributions now in 500 minutes, and he was at it again in this game with the nutmeg, the energy, the assist, the goal. I mean, the Paul Rothrock storyline, the Paul Rothrock agenda, not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I am continued to be amazed by Paulie, but at the same time, I'm not amazed because he works so hard. This was one of my favorite things to come out of the last game. This is from Jeremiah. Paul Rothrock now has 7 goals and 3 assists for the Sounders across all competitions.
There you go.
That's good for a .86 goal contributions per 90.
That is an elite
Mr.
number.
Automatic.
0.86 per 90 is absolutely elite.
That's Denny Bawanga stats.
Exactly.
Like not even joking. Like that is actually insane.
Small sample, but it is what it is.
The thing is, it would be a small sample, but it continues. Every single match he comes in, he plays. There is you can literally feel and see the shift. It's not even sample size anymore. I feel like we are literally witnessing greatness born on this pitch every single time he plays. I did want to pose this question.
Oh yeah,
here,
go for it.
Okay, this is a part of this agenda check, I'll say.
Okay.
Paul Rothrock versus Pedro de la Vega. Who is the better value?
Oh, I mean, value, it's easily Paul Rothrock because you're paying him like $30K a year and he's giving you like 0.86 goals and assists per 90 or whatever like that. And De La Vega's been hurt the whole time. So value, it's not even close. I mean, raw talent, I'm even taking into account what we've seen from Paul Rothrock and what we haven't seen from De La Vega because of the injuries. I mean, I'm probably taking De La Vega, but I mean, the value that Paul Rothrock has provided to this roster this year is insane when you consider, I mean, like the league minimum is like 80K now. So, but he's got to be making around the league minimum. I can't imagine he's making all that much more than that. The last thing I wanted to just say about Paul Rothrock was we got to do extensive Paul Rothrock content, and any week where he gets 2 goal contributions, we're gonna do it. But like I alluded to this, I think on the last show when we did the in-depth Paul Rothrock segment, which is that like to me it like shows the power of what can happen when you have nothing to lose. When you have nothing to lose, your career is kind of at a crossroads. You're thinking about getting like a regular job, right? And that's like he was having all those thoughts, and he's just been playing with his hair on fire ever since, probably with that mentality. And it's been fun to watch it pay off, and it's been like it's been kind of a respite at times this season from what this season was dragging earlier this season, and the Paul Rothrock thing was like kind of all we had for a while. Yeah. And, now that the team's been playing a lot better and he's still playing well and still, of course, skyrocketing the agenda. But just what a great subplot. I mean, we couldn't be bigger fans of Paul Rothrock. Next agenda.
One thing before I know we're going to stick on this Paul Rothrock.
Oh, yeah. But we can do 10 more minutes as far as
let's
I'm
go.
concerned.
Yeah. But I wanted to kind of maybe make a little bit of a cross reference that I've been thinking about. I look at Alex Roldan and what Brian Schmetzer has been able to do and make Alex Roldan into, coming in from basically a very similar situation as Paul Rothrock, right? Like maybe you make the team, maybe you don't, but he was working really hard in training. He came up and then he won his starting spot. He played incredibly elite through the last few years. Maybe he's fallen off a little bit this season, but he's still a very key piece to this team and this club. And like, I see this like thing that Brian is able to do and pull out of players like a Paul Rothrock, like an Alex Roldan, where they are not the $1 million superstar, but it doesn't matter. They're gonna play just as hard. They're gonna find a way, and I don't know. I just appreciate that Brian as a coach has the upbringing in like playing himself not being the best player on the team and understanding and like cultivating those players. Like that's just been so fun to watch because we get storylines like this, and that's a good shout. Like I think Schmetz actually he does deserve credit for stuff like for the Paul Rothrock thing, and I think it's an example of the whole perception of Schmetz is that he's this like not a very tactical coach, but more of a man manager, and I do think there is some degree of truth to that. But like when you think about man managing and putting your players in the best positions to succeed and then subsequently getting the best out of them, that is the real substantive part of coaching that Schmetz really excels at. And to me, the way I think about it philosophically is that's the most important part of coaching. You do have coaches that are elite at the X's and O's and can give you advantages in that way. That's few and far between. What you mostly need is guys that can manage the locker room, manage the inner team dynamics, manage egos and all that, and put their players in the best positions to succeed and get the best out of them. And I do think stuff like Paul Rothrock or Alex Roldan, like you said, that's examples of Schmetz excelling in those areas. The John Bell agenda, the John Bell should get more minutes agenda. I thought it was strengthened. I think he's looked pretty good, pretty steady. He had a goal against was that the St. Louis game? Yeah, for his former team. But really, his job first and foremost is defending, and he frankly he seemed a little less mistake prone than Jackson Reagan has been at times. So I don't know if I would. I think I was questioning the Jackson Reagan stock a little bit a few weeks ago. He's been a lot better the last few weeks for sure. But I think
as much as anything, the takeaway with the John Bell thing is that he's providing good depth and good competition. And like, if there was an injury or Jackson Reagan or Auriemar needed to sit or get rotated out, I feel great about John Bell going in there and being solid in defense, and also providing as much, if not more, of an attacking threat on set pieces than the starting two, even if it's sort of a wash in defense.
Yeah, no, I've loved his attacking movement. Him being able to like just get forward and do the things that we kind of thought that Jackson would be able to do, because he is so big and like tall and just like this presence. Or that we both have talked about that he should work on and add to his game, and he could be like incredibly elite. But John Bell's doing it, and like week by week, he's looking even better and more solid defensively. I really do think that he is giving himself an opportunity to challenge for a starting spot. I truly believe that. I don't think that Jackson's getting worse, but I do think that John Bell's getting better. And anytime you can add an attacking piece, especially when we've been performing so well on set pieces with Rusnak, kind of coming into his own, why not? Why not have an extra player who can, bam in a really sick header? So I'm hot on the John Bell agenda. I think his stock is through the roof.
It's going up. It's going up for sure. The Pedro de la Vega is the savior agenda. We talked about this a little bit, but we'll hit on it again. I mean, honestly, I came out of this game, if I had to just give my honest feelings on it, I felt like the Pedro de la Vega as the savior agenda was a little diminished based on just sort of the rust and lack of chemistry, lack of execution that we saw, especially in the first half. But like, it's just, people are going to be, we were texting a little bit about whether whether or not he might be a bot. I don't think you can really say definitively anything at all about his stock yet. It's been, I know everyone wants him to be just, you put him in like Nico Ladero and he instantly elevates the whole team like that. Watching Nico do that into the 2016 team was one of the all-time dopamine rushes that I think any of us
that
had.
Hit harder than anything
that
ever.
Was insane. Well, just how instantaneous it was. Remember the Galaxy game, the first game that he ever played, and he subbed on at the half. And I think everyone who follows this team as close as we do had the same reaction, which was just like, holy shit. Like the passes this guy is hitting, how instantaneous he elevated just how the whole team played was incredible. And De La Vega has not been able to replicate that, in part because of injury, but also you have to remember, this is like a different profile of player. This is like a younger, more developmental type player who you are hedging on upside, and you are hoping, you've seen flashes of it early in his career, and you're hoping and you're banking on, with coaching and a good comfort level and a good environment, that those attributes will be brought out with him consistently, and eventually he will have the type of impact that Ladero did have. But he's just not really at the point in his career where it's reasonable to expect that he's going to do that in the same way that Nico did. So what I would say is, especially when you take into account like all the injuries that he's had this year. So I think what I would say is, as frustrating as it might be, and as much as we're all kind of underwhelmed with the experience so far, I think you got to be patient, and you got to let him gel with the team, and then see what he can do, and then we'll make a judgment on it.
Yeah, I'm ready to declare that he is the savior dead, because I just don't think that him alone is going to be the reason that this team wins or lose games, at least the rest of this season. Maybe he turns it up in the I don't know,
I think for this season, that's a fair shout. I think long term, though, the agenda is still alive.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. But I think, he's not a bad player. He clearly has upside, but he's injured or he was injured, and he's still playing on a minutes restriction, and he's clearly not been able to get like fitness wise healthy, and that's an issue, and that's concerning. There's plenty of concerns about him. I just don't think that in any world he will be the savior of this club. He will be a great player if he's able to get back to the level that he was at, if you're able to develop him in the right way. But I don't think that he is. And I mean, maybe it's too early to say this too. Maybe I'm just gonna say it. This is a podcast. Who cares? He's not the savior. It's not too early to tell. Everything's bad. It's over. He's cooked. Get him off the team. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, yeah, that got hot. That got hot at the end, but
I had to get a soundbite in there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand like the non-bit part of that sentiment because I mean, let's face it, like we went into this season hoping and expecting that he would be a big part of this team and have a big impact, and that just hasn't happened yet. And even in the times that we've seen him play when he hasn't been injured, which is not very often, like it hasn't looked like that. But I'm willing to. I want to give it more time. I want to see what I can do. I've seen enough individual glimpses that I'm intrigued. Still intrigued.
I just don't have any expectations for the rest of this season, personally.
And honestly, like if you want to maintain your emotional well-being, like that's probably the best approach to take. Because I mean, it's been a frustrating year with this. It really has, and it's like it feels like the biggest factor that we thought could elevate this team ceiling has been it's been taken away. We haven't really even gotten the chance to see if it could be true or not. And that's what's frustrating to me. Last agenda, I'm going to throw this one out there. So I tossed out the beginnings of the Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak are the best 1-2 punch in MLS agenda. And then that immediately blew up in my face because Seattle got bammed on by LAFC really bad and neither one of them did anything. And like, you know, to be fair, I wasn't saying that agenda was cash money. I was saying that, you know, if they stay in similar
he was putting
form,
it on the stove.
I was putting it on the
stove.
Putting it on the stove. Like if they kept producing, honestly, if they kept producing at the crazy pace that they had been the few weeks prior to that LAFC game, I mean, that agenda would be kind of hot.
Yeah.
Like just based on the output that they had. But realistically, they were going to slow down eventually. They did against LAFC, but in the spirit of tossing out red hot agendas that really don't have that much of a chance of taking hold, I've got the Jordan Morris and the Paul Rothrock are the best 1-2 punch of all time agenda, which I think was strengthened in this game. And if you look at what they did late in the game, and I mean, you know, if you compare them to the other great 1-2 punches in history, like, I don't know, like Michael and Scotty, like, I don't know who you want to name, like Jordan Morris and Paul Rothrock, they're up there to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Scottie Pippen who? That's Paul Rothrock in your face. Bamming in goals, bamming in assists. This kid does it better than Sean Kemp and Gary Payton. You know what I'm talking about? We're talking about the new Rain Men. The new Rain Men. Paul Rothrock and Jordan Morris. I co-sign this agenda.
It's a good agenda, and I'm going to stand by it even if we take heat for it. All right, let's dive into questions, Noah. What do we got?
Let's do it. Thank you all for your questions. I know this was a lackluster Leagues Cup. And you know what? Honestly, you guys didn't step it up with your questions. There's a lot of similar ones. You need to heat it up. I know it's Leagues Cup, but come on. Let's if you get a red card, have a little, you know, show a little emotion here. But we got 5 here from our friends. This one starts out with Michael. I want to see John Bell and Yamar start together. John Bell has shown he is much more aggressive with the ball and is better defender than Reagan. Ari, how do you feel about that?
I don't think that's a terrible shout. You know, like I said, like I was down on the Reagan stock a little bit. I've been back up on it, but I think JB he's been balling. Like honestly, he's been playing really well, and especially like with Leagues Cup where you can get a little more adventurous with the lineups, like. That's one where I wouldn't mind like sending him back out there, both, you know, in the spirit of preserving guys' fitness and energy and all that stuff for the stretch run of the league season, but also just to see if there is more to this John Bell agenda. I think it's a good take.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the John Bell motion in the ocean. And also, he's a poster, just like both of us. He has a Twitter with like 45,000 tweets. Like, I'm sorry. He is one of us, folks. This next question comes from Scott. What is the best nickname for Paul Rothrock? And doesn't it have to be Flintstones based? I don't know if I agree with the Flintstones thing, but Ari, what is your go-to nickname for the Capitol Hill kid?
Well, John Bell called him P-Rock, which I thought was pretty good. And then someone else, I think listener Dan was in my mentions, and he pitched Rothrock Lobster.
Rothrock Lobster.
Which I think is kind of fire.
How'd you feel about the Rocky one that was given to him by MLS?
Rocky, see, I'm not as into that one. I kind of like P-Rock, especially if like the guys on the team are calling him P-Rock. It's, you know, there's got to be, Rock has to be involved.
Correct.
Honestly, just straight up Rock This guy,
I like
especially,
P-Rock.
this team has had connections to The Rock in the past.
That is true.
So, maybe, but I'm gonna have to think about this a little more because I'm a big time nicknamer. I'm kind of notorious among my friends who I don't have like a single like friend that I've known for a really long time that I call by their real name, and I call athletes by nicknames a lot, who I'm sure as everyone who listens to this knows. So I think I'm going to have to actually settle on one for Paul Rothrock soon, especially because we need an official. He's been the main character on this show since we started this show. So yeah.
Okay. We'll get an official ruling midweek episode. Ari, you've got a few days to think about it. Maybe you can even put out an official statement on sounderheart.com, sounderheart.com/LS subscribe. All right. Next question coming here from Mike. Did anyone on the Sounders step to Hassani Dotson after that egregious tackle on Rui Diaz? I don't recall anyone getting at that dude or even checking in on Raul from what was shown on the broadcast.
This is what I'm saying. Like, no one gave a shit about the whole thing. Hassani Dotson didn't give a shit. Like, the Sounders players didn't really give a shit. They were talking about reviewing the play to check if it was actually a red card offense, and Hassani Dotson looked like he really did not want to be spared his fate of getting the whole thing was like bizarre. It was very odd. I didn't know what to make of that. Like, pretty much any time in a professional soccer game when you see a red card come out, you get the swarm and the guys yelling at the ref, I didn't even do it. Like, there was just none of that.
Mm-hmm. And Raul went off injured too, and no one really did anything. It was very odd. Raul is okay though. They did report that he had a little bit. He subbed
on and then had to come off after that tackle, which was definitely unfortunate. But like, it was just the vibes. The vibes were weird. Were weird.
Exactly. All right, this one comes from Chris, and this is our final question. João Paulo looked really slow out there. How do you think JP played this game, Ari?
I didn't really. Nothing comes to mind as like egregiously bad. I think with JP, like during the dark days of earlier this season, he was not in very good form. Then he had a couple games in recent weeks when the team started heating up where I thought he looked like pretty much like old JP, like just a menace on both sides of the ball. And I was very much encouraged. And I think I even said that I felt like that was kind of an X factor that could elevate the team as much, if not more, than De La Vega if JP becomes the JP of old. I think the kind of conclusion I'm coming to with it is that he's still a good player, but like the peak pre-ACL JP, who is one of the most dominant two-boy players in the league, I don't know if he's got that level consistently. I don't know if he's going to get that back. And that's like an under talked about issue because, like a lot of this team, like how this team functions, like really on both sides of the ball, like is through him. And if he's not at his peak level, that's a ceiling capper, is it not?
No, I agree. And I think that like Obed has done a great job of stepping up in that position and really filling in and kind of hiding some of the degradingness of JP.
But he doesn't have that same like defensive bite, you know?
He will never be JP. But like I think that like with them playing next to each other, I think it's been able to balance it out. But yeah, man, I agree. I feel like we really haven't. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the season, but coming to now, I don't think he's.
It's because he hasn't been terrible. Like if he was costing the team points by playing really bad every week, I think we would be talking about it more. But it's more just like he's been more of like an average to good MLS 6 as opposed to an elite MLS 6. And for this team to be contending for stuff, I feel like he's got to be an elite MLS 6.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, I was the purveyor of the JP is washed agenda.
And then he was bamming on you for a while, but then,
maybe we need to bring it. We're bringing it back right now, okay? Bring it back. Heat it back up, JP. But thank you all for your questions. I did get on you, but these few were really good, so we appreciate you.
Thank you, as always, to everyone who submits those and gets the discourse flowing. You can always do so in my mentions. I just had a few other takes on the other Leagues Cup results that have happened over the past couple of days in addition to Seattle, and then we can get out of here unless you got anything else, Noah.
Oh, let's do it.
All right, yeah. So I was keeping track of the of the other games that were going on last night as well. And then I didn't watch as much tonight, but I looked at some of the scores today. I mean, LAFC beat the shit out of Club Tijuana 3-0. And my takeaway from that game was it was kind of satisfying to watch a Liga MX team just get the full Bouanga treatment. Like he was just he was going off. They could have had like 5 or 6 goals on that team. They looked like it was like the peak buzzsaw version of LAFC, and Bouanga just like playing like out of his mind type stuff. And when they get in that mode, like it's pretty hard to stop them. I mean, Seattle just learned that lesson once again, but this was worse, honestly. Like if you thought Seattle got bammed on by LAFC, Club Tijuana got absolutely murked. And, that was funny, but also, like LAFC is just, they're definitely a front runner. I didn't expect to come away thinking anything different from that game, but that kind of confirmed it. The other game, the Austin FC game, who were they playing? I can't remember. Was it Puebla?
It was UNAM, I'm pretty sure.
Oh no, yeah, so Austin versus Pumas, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This Austin versus Pumas game was the best game of the Friday night slate. So Austin FC, they won 3-2, but what happened was their new DP winger, did you see this? Their new DP winger got a red card in the first half.
That rocks.
They were playing down a man for like the end of the first half and the entire second half. And they ended up, it was 2-2 late, and then they ended up going up 3-2. And then at the very like last couple minutes of second half stoppage time, the Pumas get a penalty kick to tie it. And basically that would have sent it to PKs pretty much. And they have their guy go up to the spot.
Yeah, it was in 90+4.
90+4. It goes up against Steph Cleveland, former Seattle Sounder. Shout out Steph Cleveland. He got
legend.
They play Brad Stuver every week, but for Leagues Cup they decided to give Steph Cleveland some run, and it paid off. And this was honestly like, for as much as the rest of the slate dragged last night, this was an electric moment. This penalty kick, like at very last second of the game, the crowd at Q2 was going nuts, and Steph Cleveland made one of the better PK saves I've seen this season on this guy. He laid all the way out, guessed perfectly, got his hand to it, and he tipped it out. And just like the explosion of emotion in the building was crazy. They cut to Brad Stuver on the sideline, and he was going nuts. And I always think, I love it when the starter is like not playing either from injury or rotated out in this case, and the backup is in and makes a big play, and they cut to the starter and he's like going nuts for his guy. Like that's such a sick moment. And like even on the field, all the Austin FC players were going crazy, and Steph Cleveland was celebrating, but then he was like, everybody like fuck off, like go back to your spots, like we still gotta like see this game out. But like just the that was honestly one of the sickest moments of the year. Like,
yeah, I was really stoked for that. Like, and to see a guy who has been kind of a career backup, but has honestly shown that he is a quality and talented player.
When he played for Seattle, he was good.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah. I maybe I'm totally making this up in my head canon, but I feel like he saved a penalty for Seattle as well.
He did, and he also there was like a Portland game. It was like the first start he had, and everyone was like, oh my god, like we're throwing the backup goalie in for a Timbers game at Providence Park, and he not only balled out, but like he made some like really crazy saves in that game.
Yeah, so shout out to our boy,
and really just like shout out to that game for kind of salvaging what was not a very good night of games. As for tonight, Inter Miami beat Puebla 2-0. Luis Suarez scored. You had Atlas beating Houston. The Revs beat Mazatlan. That's kind of surprising. Toronto beat the Red Bulls on PKs 0-0. I didn't watch any of that, but that sounds like a super sick game. And then I wanted to talk about this Philly Union Charlotte FC game because the Philly Union won 1-0 at Subaru Park, but Charlotte FC coach Dean Smith had a really funny quote after the game. It was both a funny quote, like a good MLS coach red hot press conference quote, but also I think it kind of it shows that like the vibes, the off vibes that we were talking about were not limited just to us here in Seattle. This is Dean Smith, Charlotte FC coach, after their 1-0 loss to the Philly Union in Leagues Cup. He said, quote, "That wasn't an MLS game. That's possibly the worst game I've seen since I came over to the USA. It was a litany of errors for both teams. They deserve to win because they probably got the only shot on target all game. It was just a bad game. Not a great advert. We have to take responsibility for that, and we just told the players that in the dressing room. The pitch didn't help. I think they must have had a water shortage here or something. I think I've played on better car parks than that. It was so much better when we played here last time."
Oh my God.
Dean's fire, honestly. I think first of all, he's done a pretty damn good job with Charlotte, but like just the fact that he came out and he said that's possibly the worst game I've seen since I came over to the USA.
I think it's so funny too, because this comes off of like literally a week ago at the All-Star game. Why am I blanking on his name? Don Garber was literally like, guys, the Open Cup's ass. No one wants to watch those shitty games. There's like 4 people at the games. The quality is bad. They're playing backup to the backups. And then you get to this and it's like, Dean Smith's like, this is literally
the worst
possibly
game.
Not only the worst game I've watched, the worst field I've played on, and the worst environment I've played in. That is... I kind of want to go back and watch that game now, because as much as like when I was watching the Seattle game, there was definitely a lot lengthy portions of it where I was like, this is bad, this is pretty bad. I would not call it the worst game that I've seen. I've seen some bad ones, seen some real bad. I've been covering MLS since 2014, so I've seen some bad games. So that wasn't, I don't think this one didn't really stand out much. It was kind of just like a run of the mill bad game where it kind of dragged a little bit. Like that scathing of a critique from one of the coaches, it must have been so bad. Oh God, especially I can't even imagine.
The Philly Union are not good right now. So I'm I'm low key curious as to why he said it was a litany of errors. So, anyway, shout out to Dean Smith for providing us with that content for the week. That's your blazing hot coach press conference quote of the week. All right, that was all I had. Unless you had any other news items that I missed, no, I think we can call it a wrap right there for episode 54. Thank you, as always, to everyone for tuning in. We really appreciate each and every one of you. Like, comment, rate, subscribe, sub to the YouTube for sure. Sounder@heart.com/LS. Any support that, honestly, if you want to support the show, that's the best way to do it. Sounder@heart.com/LS. But if you don't want to do that, just sub to the YouTube, and that's enough. That's enough.
Leave us some reviews too. We have so much more new listenership. But rack up those reviews, toss us 5 stars, and give us some nickname suggestions in those reviews for Paulinho Rothrock. Yeah.
All right, we're going to call it right there for episode 54. We'll catch you next time. Until then, we out.
Peace.